Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. We've got a great webinar set up for you where we're going to be previewing for you our 10th annual Ultrasound World Conference. We've got Doug here who's going to go through the different presentations that we've got set up, talk a little bit about the presenters, and even go over some things that you guys can take back even today to start working on. So just a little taste of what's to come at Ultrasound World, and we're excited to have you guys here with us today. UE Systems has been around for 40 years, and over the years it just became more and more apparent that it would be very valuable to not only build a community of ultrasound users, but to facilitate a venue where best practices can be shared, highlighted, showcased, so that everybody can be learning from each other. And that's really where Ultrasound World stemmed from. And now in its 10th year, I think those that have attended and presented in the past can really say that mission is really being accomplished. And so, sorry, I just realized my screen wasn't showing. Sorry about that. Anyway, so just want to share a little bit about that, kind of that history of Ultrasound World. And then, just for general UE Systems information, we do have our interactive guide that, as we always say on these, that we're willing to send this to you if you're interested. Just shoot me a note in the questions box and we'll send this over to you. So with that, I will turn it over to Doug. Let me just change the screen here, Doug, and I'll let you take it away.
All right, thanks, Maureen. Welcome, everybody. Just going to go ahead and get my slides up here. We are very excited to be able to put on our 10th Ultrasound World Conference down in beautiful Clearwater Beach, Florida. We've had a great run at it. We've had some unbelievable presenters over the years, and I think we're going to surpass all expectations once again this year with the program we've put together. We've got really a nice group of people set up to present. This year is a little bit different than past years, as we're going to be doing two conferences at once. We're going to be doing Ultrasound World 10, and we're going to be doing the inaugural Reliable Asset World Conference at the same time. So many of you who attend one or the other of those conferences will have a chance to sort of cross-pollinate back and forth and catch some of the presentations from Reliable Asset World, catch some from Ultrasound World. The agendas will be up and available on our website, so it'll let you sort of pick and choose where you want to be and when. But I'm going to focus today and talk a little bit about Ultrasound World specifically. Over the years, we've had many of the attendees of Ultrasound World come up to us after a particular presentation and say, wow, that was really great information. I'd really like more of that. Why don't you make the presentations longer? So what we've done this year is we've decided we're going to do a couple of pre-conference workshops based on the feedback we got last year and what people really wanted to see a lot more of. So one of those workshops is, and if I can get my screen to change here, one of those workshops is going to be with Joe Gerlach. I'm having a little technical issue here.
I think sometimes if you just put your cursor and click it on the screen, it'll kind of then get you to where you can use the arrows to toggle.
There we go.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that. The first of these workshops is going to be analyzing sound files for electrical defect identification. This is an application for ultrasound that has really escalated over the last couple of years. More and more people in the field are starting to use ultrasound not only as a standalone technology, but as a sort of complement to their infrared programs to go out and troubleshoot and inspect their electrical distribution systems in their plant. And a big question we get asked all the time is we go out there, we hear these sounds, We record the sound files. We look at it on a time wave form. We look at it in the spectrum analysis software. What does it mean? How do we actually analyze not only what kind of a defect it is and whether it is a defect at all, but how severe is that defect? So Joe is a veteran of Ultrasound World. I think he's presented at every one of our conferences since the very onset 10 years ago. And he's done a great job of sort of putting all that in layman's terms and being able to explain clearly how to identify these defects, what do the different types of defects mean when you see them, and how do we gauge severity. Joe comes to us basically several years in the Air Force, working on ground support equipment. He had 10 years in Central Florida working on site as an electrician. So he's got a lot of great hands-on experience in his career. He was in the phosphate mining industry, chemical fertilizer. He's really done quite a bit of hands-on maintenance on electrical assets. The last 10 years, I think even more, he's been with TEG Corporation in Pittsburgh. He's currently the Vice President of Operations for their Technical Training and Support Division. As you can see, some of his statistics there. He's a level 3 thermographer, level 2 ultrasound. He teaches OSHA courses, and he also is a seminar instructor for arc flash safety, which incidentally, the last day of the conference, we're doing 2 post-conference workshops. One is going to be on DMS and spectralizer software. The other post-conference workshop is a full day on NFPA 70E. For those of you who are not familiar with that, it's the National Fire Protection Association. It's 70E is basically all the requirements surrounding personnel that work around and work on energized electrical apparatus and all the different, safety things they should be taking a look at and they should understand and they should follow. So that's going to be a great post-conference workshop for anybody who's working around energized electrical assets. So Joe, as I said, brings to us a lot of hands-on experience. I know the presentations he's done in the past and the workshops he's done for us have been very interactive. So be ready if you're going to attend the conference and this workshop in particular, be ready for a lot of activity back and forth with Joe. He likes people to help him analyze wave files, and he'll point out some of the things that you should be looking for. As far as a little how-to tip, just today for the webinar, how do we gauge the severity of a defect? We always hear from people in the field, they look at a wave file and they say, well, okay, I hear the sound, but what does it actually mean? And I'm going to give you 3 little how-to tips that'll help you gauge severity once you're analyzing the spectrum of a supposed electrical fault or electrical issue in a piece of energized gear. One thing is look for the changes in amplitude. As you see the amplitude start to get louder and softer, which you can see on these 2 green arrows, that's a good indication that you're getting into a tracking or an arcing situation where the problem is starting to get worse. The other thing you want to look at is, how often do the discharges occur? Many times you compare a tracking sound in a piece of electrical gear to like a popping or a crackling. So if those excursions, as Joe would say in his presentation, as those excursions start to get closer together and those events start to happen more often, the problem's getting more severe. And lastly, when they do happen, when there is a pop or a crack, how long does it last? And as you can see here with these 2 yellow arrows, some of these pops and cracks last a little bit longer. They're a little fatter. That means the problem is getting a little more severe. So the 3 things you can take back today from how do I gauge the severity of a defect? How much does the amplitude change up and down? Not necessarily how loud it is. How much does it change? Louder, softer? How often do the events take place? And when the event or the discharge takes place, how long does it last? And Joe will spend a lot of time and show us a lot of great examples of problems that go from very minor and over time, you can actually watch that problem or that defect get more severe. He'll also talk about some of the consequences of not taking action. So really great presentation. Really looking forward to seeing Joe go through it again. As I said, it's a big, hot topic for those users of ultrasound out there. How do we actually analyze those wave files? The second workshop we have planned as a pre-conference workshop is another really exciting topic, and something that ultrasound has really been used more and more for in the last couple of years, and that's doing condition monitoring on rotating assets. In other words, James is going to talk about setting up a successful bearing condition monitoring program. Anybody who is on this cast or has been in Ultrasound World in the past knows that James Neal is a really dynamic speaker. He really brings a lot of real-world knowledge to the table. Sometimes you see a PhD at the end of somebody's name, and you're sort of, is it going to be all theoretical? But in the case of James, it's anything but theoretical. He really has a tremendous amount of experience working out of Waikato University, which is down in New Zealand. But he's not a professor. He doesn't teach classes. They have a research institute that is contracted by some of the dairy companies, and he's a type of guy who everything for him is hands-on. So he's out in these dairy facilities working with their folks, and he's been doing ultrasound now for about 8 years in every facet and every application for the technology. So he's got an incredible amount of hands-on examples. One of the things that I love listening to James is he doesn't focus in on one area of reliability, or he doesn't focus in on, okay, we're going to set up a condition monitoring program for our bearings. He takes it all the way back to the beginning. Many of you are familiar, I think, with the PF curve, which you can see all the way to the right here, is really at the very earliest stage that a failure could be detected, and then you apply technology to try to detect it higher and higher on that curve until full functional failure occurs. James actually takes it all the way back. His experience is not only just from the potential where failure can be detected, but he takes it all the way back to the design stages. His experience working with several companies in New Zealand and around the world is he gets involved in the very design stage of the asset to make it easier to do condition monitoring. If you design it right and you install it right, his philosophy is your condition monitoring activities will be that much more efficient. So he really is somebody that you want to pay attention to. If you get a chance to attend this pre-conference workshop, you should walk away with a heck of a lot of really valuable information. James has typically, at every conference we've done, he's another veteran who's been there every year, gotten really high accolades. He's the type of guy that after his presentation, there's 20 people waiting in line to ask him questions and to hit him up for more knowledge. So really excited to have James back this year. Couple of just quick how-tos though, going back to condition monitoring and going back to how do you set up a bearing program. And James will probably hit on these in his presentation, but keep your database manageable. Keep your groups under 200 points. As you start to develop a history on those particular points, it's going to make your database a lot easier to manage. Take a sound recording on your initial baseline readings. It's always good to know where you're at today as you move forward and start to develop a history on each individual asset. It's great to be able to look back at what it sounded like when it was new or whether it was initially tested. And then take a sound recording when a point hits an alarm level. One little example here is we'll use 8 dB over a baseline as the typical, initial alarm, as what we call a low alarm level. That can mean one of two things. It can mean either that bearing needs to be lubricated, or there's actually a fault developing that bearing, and while lubrication may hide it, it's not going to solve the problem. Again, those sound recordings come in handy because, as you can see from this spectrum, the bottom spectrum in red shows an 8 dB over a baseline, which is simply an increase in amplitude, or for those ultrasound users, an increase in friction. The sound got louder because the friction went up, lubrication broke down. That needs to have lubrication applied. The top spectrum shows very distinct fault frequencies, which tells us that while it may need lubrication, there's also a bearing fault developing. So when James talks about setting up your rotating equipment program with ultrasound, he's going to be touching on a lot of these topics. So hopefully that'll give you something to take back and use in your bearing condition monitoring programs now. After we finish up the first day with our 2 pre-conference workshops, we're going to really get things kicked off the first day of the conference with our first keynote presentation, which is a pretty exciting presentation. We've got Sean Flaherty from Kraft Foods. He's got 20 years experience with Kraft Foods, and in the last several years has really put their reliability program on a pretty steep trajectory, realizing some great results. He's going to share with everybody, you know, how he was able to draw direct financial gains out of their reliability process, really link the program to, you know, the corporate bottom line. And I think that's going to be a really interesting presentation for us to listen to. I had an opportunity to talk to another guy who's had some long-term experience with that. And the question we always hear is, how do I get senior leadership support to start a program, whether it be starting a reliability initiative, whether it be starting a condition monitoring program, an energy program. So I talked to Tim Gaucher, who had 30 years at Cargill and the last 10 in a corporate reliability role, and said, hey, give me 3 quick things, 3 things that you should think about as you try to get senior leadership support to start any kind of a program. The first thing is reliability initiative must really fit the corporate vision and goals and support one of the present corporate initiatives. So in other words, if you're looking to get support to start a compressed air leak detection program, one of the things that it should do is you should look at the corporate vision and goals. If one of those goals is be a more effective and efficient, you know, energy responsible company, then you're going to have a lot easier time to get leadership support to start that program. The second thing was show me the money. You know, there has to be a good, solid business case that shows, you know, the investment in equipment and in personnel and what kind of a revenue and payback you're going to get from that. And the third thing was a simple, easy to understand message of what kind of improvements can be expected from the initial onset of that program, and what the benefits are going to be, whether they be financial, whether they be safety, whether they be environmental. So, and if you can articulate those in a sentence or 2, you're going to have a lot better chance of getting leadership support to start that initiative. I know Sean is going to touch on some of those things in his presentation. He's probably going to go into a lot more detail on how they did it over at Kraft, but should be really exciting and a great way to kick off the conference. It always comes down to that middle one, really. You know, show me the money. For those of you out there who currently use ultrasound, you've got to sell that program all the time. You know, you need personnel to do the testing, and you have to be able to justify that to senior management. The first presentation I'm going to jump into here is another exciting one, Exposing the Unheard. This presentation is by Steve Toth. Steve has had a pretty stellar career, 27 years of experience. He's been in executive leadership positions and maintenance management positions. Very noteworthy, spent 7 years as a vice president of maintenance and asset reliability for Covanta Energy. One of the things that Steve does, and I've had a chance to work with Steve quite a bit and listen to him speak and see what he does in the field, one of the things that he sort of specializes in is going out and getting a really quick return on investment for having a program in place. In other words, I'll use a specific ultrasound example. Many of the customers he's been working with recently, he's able to leverage ultrasonics on the energy side of things show them a very quick payback on a compressed air system, for example, and then use those saved dollars to invest in some more detailed reliability and condition monitoring initiatives. I know that a couple examples he's going to use is some of the ways he's been able to step into a plant from day one and show them the money. What I want to do here on this quick sort of how-to tip is I want to link right here to the way Steve calculates the savings on a compressed air survey. Initially, obviously, you want to go out and locate the leaks, measure the leaks, and once they're downloaded into the DMS software, we're easily able to generate these types of reports. We simply enter in some information as far as what the cost per kilowatt hour is. We enter in from a pull-down window what state it's taking place in, and that actually links the cost per kilowatt hour to greenhouse gas emissions. Then in this case, we can look at a very simple report which tells us cost savings from the number of leaks found. In addition, it'll actually give us what our greenhouse gas emission reduction would be if we made the repairs to those leaks. I can look at, in this case, a monthly report. The number of leaks here, it's about, I think, 18 leaks, and what the total CFM and what the total cost savings by making those repairs is. Basically, if I go back to my report section, I can see the details on not only the dollars, but what my reduction in greenhouse gas emissions are. So Steve's used these types of numbers and this type of cost savings from many surveys he's done at different facilities to then say we've saved this much money on the compressed air system and we reduced our greenhouse gas emissions output by this much. Now let's take some of that savings and let's apply it to doing some other condition monitoring activities. So it's a unique approach that he's taken. It's also a great way to show senior leadership at a plant or in an organization, show them the money and say, here's what we can save by these initiatives. So pretty excited to see Steve get this program going. Our next presentation is Kelly Pathel with Swagelok Energy Advisors. I've had the opportunity to work with Kelly, probably over the last 20-some years. I mean, he's forgotten more about steam than most of us will ever know. So it should be interesting to hear him talk about steam leakage, cost detection, estimating, and correction. Kelly's worked all over the world for a myriad of different companies. One of the things that I love about Kelly's presentations are that he really gives an overview of not just one component of the steam system, but how each component interacts with the other components. It's not enough to have a great steam trap testing program if your condensate return system isn't designed correctly, as an example. So what Kelly typically does is he takes a bird's eye approach to the entire system, and during his presentation he'll show us obviously some case studies, some things that he's worked on and he's done, but he'll also show us ways to document cost savings. He'll show us some things that we should be doing that we probably haven't even thought of. One thing I'll bring up here on my how-to tip, steam trap testing. Do a little research before you go out and decide to embark on a steam trap testing program. Know where the location of the discharge orifices are on each trap, as you can see by this diagram down to the right. This kind of information is readily accessible. I simply got this off of Swagelok's website. They have a full steam trap troubleshooting guide. We have the same thing on uesystems.com, where you can get hints on what you should be or where you should be testing each trap. You see by these arrows where the discharge orifice is located. The other thing is educate yourself on the operation and the associated sounds that each trap makes that you're going to go out and test. So in other words, look up the different traps you have in your trap population in your facility, find out how they work, be able to identify them just purely from appearance sake. so that you know what to expect when you're out listening to them, whether it's a leaking trap, whether it's a plug trap, whether it's cycling too fast, or maybe it's undersized. There's a lot of information you can get just by educating yourself. And again, a lot of this type of information is available from multiple sources. You can use uesystems.com as a resource. You can use Swagelok as a resource. There's a lot of really valuable things out there that you can go look up. The next presentation is another really interesting, exciting presentation. Lorna Hall with Jacobs Technology is going to talk to us about what they're doing with their ultrasound program down at Kennedy Space Center. The title, obviously, is Ultrasound at Kennedy Space Center, Past, Present, and Future. In my conversations with Lorna and recently what they've been doing, many years they've spent with ultrasound on general facilities management applications, testing motors, testing pumps, doing a lot of HVAC work. But now they're starting, after they were trained level 1 recently and had many of their technicians trained, they're starting to take advantage of the fact that they've got the technology in-house. Now they're thinking out of the box a little bit. They're starting to use it on things like the crawler that takes the actual shuttle from where it's stored out to the launch site. They're starting to use it on some of their hydraulic systems. So it should be a really exciting presentation. Plus, it's just darn interesting to see all this information about the Space Shuttle and the Space Launch Systems programs. She's in the process now of implementing a full RCM program as one of their steps towards asset management, and a part of that program is, or an integral part of that program, is their ultrasound program. So we're really excited to get Lorna down there and see what's going on over at Kennedy Space Center. Okay, that sort of is day one. What we try to do each day is have some type of a reception in the exhibit area. I just threw a few pictures up there. The second night of the conference, we also have a beach barbecue, which is another opportunity for you to network, not only with the presenters, but with some of the other attendees. I try to walk around the conference while I'm there, and at every turn, pretty much, I see interesting conversations going on, people talking about applications for different technologies, a lot of how-to, a lot of good information exchanged during these receptions and during things like the beach barbecue. There's also going to be a number of solutions providers down at the conference. We have an exhibit area going to be set up with sort of the latest and greatest in different technologies. There's going to be some people with some infrared, some service providers there. So it's also a great opportunity to walk around and see what's new in the industry. So the networking opportunities are certainly another big draw when it comes to Ultrasound World this year. We've got probably more exhibits this year than we've ever had in the past. It also will give you an opportunity to talk to some of the people, not just from Ultrasound World, but from Reliable Asset World. Day two of the conference, we're going to kick it off with a presentation by Jack Nicklaus. Many of you have heard of Jack. He is actually an icon in the reliability world. He's been around over 4 decades. He's going to talk to us a lot of the lessons he's learned. He's been a consultant, a trainer. He's authored 10 different books on maintenance and reliability subjects. He's a guy that you can have a 10-minute conversation with, and you're going to walk away with something you didn't know. So really looking forward to Jack's presentation. I know one of the things that he's going to talk about this year, which is a hot topic, is procedure-based maintenance and the importance of procedure-based maintenance. If we think about sort of where our workforce has gone, you know, in the United States especially, we have an aging workforce, and there's a lot of tribal knowledge that we don't necessarily have the most effective way to pass that tribal knowledge down to the newer folks that are entering the workforce and entering the maintenance and reliability fields. So to have procedures is a a key way to get that knowledge transfer in a repeatable fashion. If you think about, just human nature, we tend to do the same task, and if we don't have a procedure in place, we'll do that task slightly different each time. So one of the things that's going to be exciting about Jack's presentation is when he talks about different things we can do to enhance that knowledge transfer. One of those is going to be this procedure-based maintenance. As a matter of fact, our training department at UE Systems now is in the process of putting together a bunch of application-based procedures. We've already got some put together, and I'll show you here in a few minutes one of those procedures that's put together in both a written and a visual format. So very, very important. Looking forward to seeing Jack down at the conference. Just a wealth of information every time he does a presentation. So we're excited to get him down there. Next presentation, using airborne ultrasound and wireless condition monitoring to detect potential failures on manufacturing robots. The whole remote diagnostics world has sort of exploded in the last couple of years. Many of the people we talk to out in the field are saying that there's new regulations being handed down from their companies that revolve around, shielding and guarding on rotating equipment for safety reasons. Makes it really difficult to do condition monitoring. I was in a food manufacturing plant recently, a few months ago, speaking with the reliability manager, and she said that they've had to rethink their whole condition monitoring program, both for vibration and for ultrasound, because of access issues. Their company had actually put in place now some new requirements for guarding on rotating equipment that make it very, very difficult to access where they need to access to do the condition monitoring. So it'll be interesting to hear both Randy Reed of Honda and Doug Plucknett talk about what they're doing on robots. They've got a program in place now that lets them remotely monitor using ultrasonics and vibration and send those signals wirelessly so that they can be analyzed. Always a pleasure to hear Doug Plucknett talk. He's been around the block for the past 30 years or so. He spent 19 years at Kodak. He's got a tremendous amount of experience with reliability-centered maintenance. He's working currently with Allied Reliability. One of the things that's really great to listen to Doug talk about is he knows things from the very basic level of how they break. So when he goes through, for example, the RCM process, he actually figures out what does everything do, how does it fail, and how do we apply technology to it. So it should be an interesting presentation. Randy's 12 years at Honda in the Alabama plant, the maintenance manager of their headline assembly. A lot of hands-on experience and how-to going to come from Randy's part of the presentation. So really looking forward to seeing how they're doing some remote monitoring. In this case, wireless, but there's also some wired possibilities with ultrasound and some of the other technologies out there. Should be an interesting presentation, especially with the changes that are going on now as far as this guarding and shielding and safety regulations in place. We've also got Ian Ware from Ultratech. He's going to talk about specifically the UltraPro 15,000, how it's being used in mines down in Australia. One thing that's great about hearing Ian's presentation is for those of you who have very difficult environments, dirty environments, a lot of dust, a lot of dirt. There's nothing worse than trying to work out in the mines down in Australia, as Ian would say. Ian's got 20 years experience across a lot of different industries. He's worked with IRD, NTEC. He's had experience working at Shell, Paul Corporation. He's currently the president of his own company, Ultratech. He's been doing a tremendous amount of training on ultrasound throughout a myriad of different industries down under. And great presenter, always full of interesting stories. Should be a really interesting presentation on how they're using ultrasound and increasing the level of reliability at the different mines and refineries in Australia, especially in very difficult and tough areas to do testing. We've also got Jason Kopczynski presenting from DesCase. He's the Director of Reliability Services for DesCase. He spent a lot of years doing a lot of coaching on reliability and especially lubrication management. Published a bunch of technical articles. I've heard Jason talk before, knows a tremendous amount about lubrication. Ultrasound, as you know, is only a small part of a lubrication excellence program, but it'll be interesting to hear what Jason has to say. We've got another little how-to tip here I wanted to bring up. We basically identify which bearings need lubrication using ultrasonics, and then we're able to prevent over-lubricating them using the UltraPro Grease Caddy. Here's an example I mentioned where Jack is talking about procedure-based maintenance. We're working on a series of what we call visual instructions. As you can see, here's an example of 2 visual instructions on how to use the Grease Caddy. We're putting together application-based visual instructions for each one of the ultrasonic tools and for each one of the applications. So it's something that'll be available on our website if you have other questions about those. I know we have about half of them are already completed, those visual instructions. So they're available in an electronic format, which you can print out, where I've even seen people in the field now starting to use them on a PDA or on a telephone. You can just bring up the visual instruction as you're out in the field running your lubrication routes. So it's kind of exciting to have those new procedure-driven documents available to use in the field. We've also got another ultrasound veteran, Ultrasound World veteran coming back. We've got Roger Early from Lubrizol. Roger's presented multiple times at Ultrasound World. He's been with Lubrizol for 32 years. He's in the engineering and maintenance department. He basically started his predictive maintenance program back in 1997. He was responsible for 2 plants. He has taken a multi-technology approach with vibration, ultrasound, and infrared. He's guided us over the past couple of years at the conference through how he started out with some very simple-to-use ultrasonic equipment and has since kept getting to the point where the information he needed and the reports he needed to generate, he needed more sophisticated equipment. So he's sort of going to guide us through that journey of the different techniques and the different technology, where he's applied them, what he's been able to accomplish with them. Roger really puts on a nice show down there. He knows what he's doing with a multiple technology approach. Always has a lot of good pictures, a lot of good how-to. So we're pretty excited to have Roger back at Ultrasound World again this year. Okay, and for those Colombo fans, just one more thing, sir. I know many of you would love to come to sunny Clearwater Beach, especially those people who are located in the Midwest and the Northeast after the winter we've had, and you may need some help getting approval to attend the conference. We've got a business justification letter. I think Maureen will actually be able to guide you through on our website where to find that, and it outlines the benefits of attending the conference. You download it, you can customize it with your details. So actually that's about it for me. I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to turn it back over to Maureen now with some information of where to find this justification letter, and some of the other information specifically about Ultrasound World.
All right. Well, excuse me. Thanks, Doug. And that was obviously a really quick overview of everything that we're going to expect to hear about it at Ultrasound World, but hopefully it kind of got you guys excited to try and make that effort to get down there. I've got up on my screen right now the Ultrasound World website. It's just ultrasoundworld.com, so hopefully pretty easy for you all to remember where to find this. And as Doug mentioned, we do have our business justification letter on the website here. You'll see it's down here towards the bottom. And yeah, you simply just have to kind of download it, fill in, you know, what a flight might cost from wherever you're traveling from, and use this to kind of help you get that approval. And you know, we also find it's helpful if you can have kind of looked through the agenda and the different folks that are going to be speaking and can kind of highlight, yeah, this would really hit home for what we're trying to do, and kind of make note of those kinds of things too. That tends to be the best way to get some attention and hopefully that approval. One other thing I wanted to mention is we're working with Plant Services this year. A lot of you probably get their magazine and emails and things like that. But what they're going to be doing, they're going to have 2 of their editors down at our conferences, and they're going to be producing for us each day what's called a show daily. So basically a kind of a newspaper kind of recapping the different content and events from the day before. And it's going to be a really great tool not only for you all to have to kind of recap what you learned and to kind of almost take all the notes that you probably wrote down for yourself and kind of have it in this nice little package, but also it's going to be a great tool to kind of send back to the office, back to your supervisor to say, hey, here's like real solid proof of what's been going on the past couple days, and hopefully get them already kind of understanding the things you've been learning, so that when you get back to the office after the event, you guys can kind of hit the ground running with things that you want to implement from what you've learned. So we're really excited about that, and that show daily will be available via email to anybody that actually wants it, but obviously for those that will be at the conference as well. So just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I am going to bring my slides back up here. And one other thing that Doug, you know, kind of touched on with the networking receptions, you know, that it's a great opportunity, obviously, to be spending time with the other folks that are attending, and he did mention, obviously, the presenters would be there, but, you know, this event really is a great venue to actually be able to spend time with those presenters. You know, some of the conferences you go to, you just don't have that access, and I think as you can see from the bios of the folks that are going to be presenting, there's some really, really smart folks with a lot of history and a lot of good stories to tell that you're going to be having cocktails with, having, you know, even sitting down for dinner with. So I think that's one of the things that really sets our event apart, is really that access to the presenters and that ability to kind of bounce ideas back and forth, and not have to be, you know, waiting in a line at the end of a presentation to have that conversation. So just wanted to make sure we highlighted that a little bit too. So just to wrap up, you know, our website obviously has a lot of good information, a lot of things that Doug even reviewed now. We've got different white papers on other webinars that we've hosted on the different applications. So if you want to get even more of a flavor of what we're going to be learning about at Ultrasound World, we've got all kinds of resources you can check out ahead of time on the site. You'll also find on the website past recordings of presentations from previous Ultrasound World. So again, just a great way to really see for yourself what this event is all about, and what kind of value you can expect to get from it. We've got a lot of information out there. We've got our two users groups rather on LinkedIn. One is our UltraProbe users, and the other our Reliable Asset World group. Both are great communities to ask questions, help answer questions, get feedback on something you might be trying to do from your peers, and maybe even a great place to start finding out who's going to be coming, so you can start making those connections ahead of time. So be sure to check those out on LinkedIn. And just some upcoming dates to point out. We've got another series of our online software training coming up on March 3rd. We're going to be doing Spectralizer Part 1 again, just to make sure everybody that is interested gets a chance to see that. Then we've got our next regularly scheduled monthly webinar is going to be next month, March 26th, and we've got Dave Reber from GM coming to talk about the condition-based monitoring they're doing at General Motors, and it should be a really good webinar. So you'll see some invites from us for that. And of course the dates for the two conferences. So again, our newest offering, Reliable Asset World and Ultrasound World 10, co-located, so you get that as we're saying, the best of both worlds, access to both, and all the attendees are going to get a Kindle with the proceedings from both events loaded to it, so you are going to have access to both sets of content regardless of which conference you sign up for. So we hope that that will be beneficial to everybody. So with that, I will leave up the contact us screen here, and hope everybody has a great day. If you have any questions, and I know some have come in, so we'll be getting in touch with you guys offline here, you know where to reach us. And thanks again, Doug, and we really hope to see you guys in Clearwater, Florida in May.